Welcome back to part two of this
Drink.
delightful drink. This delightful ETF2L season
We never heard
15.
what you're drinking, Admirable.
Drinking a Magners, a nice, well, a couple, but anyway, let's not get sidetracked. I'm trying to be professional here. We're back anyway. This is part two. It's more of an open-ended discussion. I've just got a list of topics here. I'm going to wheel them out one after the other. I'm going to start off by blowing my own trumpet a little bit. Ips, you're going to like this one too, but it's sort of looking back and looking forward. I want to talk about the impact of the Crack Clan initiative from the 2 seasons ago. We started streaming, we started giving out demos, all that sort of access content, and a lot of people have followed. You know, you see Numlocked streaming a lot, Epsilon, they're all streaming. Can we take credit for that, guys?
Broder.
That's what I mean. Broder as
Broder
well. Everybody wants to get in the action. Is that the future?
I'm super happy with the situation that we're in. I mean, I don't know. Are you streaming at the moment, Zebbosai?
It was a while ago. It must have been gone.
But like that, we had content created by the top 3 teams over a certain amount of time was just super nice. Like it lifts. It is not for us. It's not for Numlock, Zebbosai, Ips, or Admirable. We won't see the impact of this, but like in long terms, like in like 1 year's time or something, the people that learn from our shit will be good and will replace basically our teams because we won't be around and stuff like that, so they can learn from our content. So it's really cool. And I wouldn't say we can take the full credit for it. I mean, we did it, yeah, but like, well, what is there to take credit for? We did it, and then people would be like, okay, it's cool, so it's easy to do, so we can do it as well. And that was essentially the idea, right? Like,
Yeah, well,
do something and lead by example.
I agree with what you're saying. That I'm just putting words in people's mouths here, but let me ask Numlocked and Zebbosai, did seeing Crack Clan try and up the game, up what could be done by Prem teams, did that encourage you, or is this just coincidental that you all started?
It's nice to see like TF2 in general has come leaps and bounds since like 1 year, 2 years ago. I mean, around that time when I was in Infused,
Fucking
there's a
Fuse.
real dispute over there's a real dispute over what teams should can stream. Like I remember me and Dunk were doing a lot about streaming or not. Dunk was very much against streaming, and I was in favour of streaming because teams didn't want to give this sounds kind of negative, but the scene was very much against sharing tactics and whatnot because it was very close. Whereas about now, the scene isn't as close as it was back then.
Whoa. So you're saying that if it became close, like if you lost the game, would you stop streaming?
Of course.
No,
to be fair.
No. Now I don't think I would. I think the stream. I mean, I can't stream at the moment anyway. I've not been able to stream for since the start of this month. I mean, my internet's at like 0.11 upload or whatever. I think it's better for the general and more progressive for the community that everybody streams. There's no reason to hide everything. But like I said, the communities are not as close as it used to be. Well, not the community. Sorry, the game isn't as close as it used to be. Like back then, Epsilon and Infused, although Epsilon always won, they were always close, very close maps. And that's the reason people didn't want to stream back then.
Can you explain us why? Was it maybe a weaker Epsilon?
Why it was as close? Yeah, it was a weaker Epsilon. Like they had Extremer who'd been playing for a very long time. He didn't care as much. Walters again, someone who played for a very long time, didn't care as much. Nox is on soldier. That's not his. He's a good soldier, but that's not his strongest role.
Yeah, of course.
So it's just a lineup of Epsilon that didn't care as much as they do now. Whereas now they've got a group of Epsilon, a group of players that care as much about the game as each other do. And that's why like streaming is okay, because we all care so much that we're willing to progress our game to the next level that it doesn't matter if we stream. It's like we're still leaps and bounds ahead of other teams because we put that much time in, or we focus that much on the game that we're still ahead.
Yeah, just to jump in there, maybe there's something in what you're saying, like in the past, the older generation, like mid strats and stuff like that, really could win a game for you. But now, since ETF2L made it compulsory that demos had to be uploaded and stuff like that, that's all public domain. Anyone who wants to spend the time can find out your strategies. But even streaming that stuff isn't that important. It's like, it's all very well having a plan, but in TF2 it breaks down to how individual players make decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not as there's no need to be secretive anymore because everything is. It's not necessarily things you set up before the game. It's more on the fly. So it's, like you said, it's more about the decisions you make in the game than everything you set up beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
This is something that I also found really silly in North America. If you remember, a couple of months ago, then when people tried to get into LAN and they put their streams on private. I mean, you don't invent the wheel again in TF2. There's also, oh shit, there's someone else already done in like in the past and stuff like that. It's about like how you play as a team together and how you adapt to certain things. And I don't think that actually streaming your comms and stuff actually hinders you. Obviously, I had this feeling for a time when we uploaded our comms and our STVs that over time people would just one click, right click, like save as, and they would watch it. They could see what we do. Like they would know our strategy, and then within 1 week they would know what we do, and we had adapt again. So in the end, it's also boosting you to another level, if that makes sense. Like you have to adapt every week. You can't just settle, and that's what I felt that a lot of teams that played, let's say, below our level suddenly realized, okay, we can just download this file and then we know what they're doing. We don't have to guess what is going on, and then we have to adapt to that. And I felt like this is also a big part to why, obviously it's just third place, but why we could hold our level with always getting new people in, basically, because we had to adapt every week. Where we had to learn. We couldn't settle. It was always, for a while, it was always a struggle to even keep the third place going, if that makes sense, because teams underneath us watched our content, basically. And then they stopped, or we just got better, and then there was this huge gap that we now see. But I'm really satisfied with the way that it is looking now. Like that, the whole top tier of players in Europe create content that is accessible to people and that we can use for our own good. Because the community won't mind, and like they will be behind us because of that anytime.
Yeah, and it's a real shame that the lower Prem teams don't really utilize that. I mean, they've got the content readily available. I mean, I've streamed, Mike streamed, Nox even streams, Broder streams, Zebbosai streams, Kata streams. Like, there's so many streams that they have readily available for them to watch and learn from the top teams and see what they do right, see what they do wrong. And they can then synergize that with the STVs and see exactly how things are going down the game. But they don't do that. They don't put that.
Well, you know me. I like.
Let me bring Zebo in here.
One second. Sorry, Zebo. You know me. Like every time you beat us 5-0 or something, right? Like 45 minutes or an hour after the scrims, I would contact you and ask you stuff about the games, and I would tell you that I already watched the VODs, right? Like I'm instantly on your content, trying to find out what you just main called because it's still fresh. Because that's for me is the only way to learn how you guys are playing, and in the end, it's you that Broder and us are chasing down. It's the experience and the mindset that Epsilon delivers onto every official that we try to reach. So like we see your content and we take it.
TF2 is not a static game; it's a very dynamic game in the fact that you can't do the same thing all the time. You have to constantly be able to counter what the enemy team is doing.
Yeah. Go on.
And the lower Prem teams just aren't ready to do it.
Zebbosai, I want to hear what do you think about this whole topic? Not just about the fact there is more content, but this idea they touched on about at the beginning. There may have been a question: as are we actually putting ourselves at a disadvantage here, Broder? Or maybe I've heard in the past that you guys don't really have any strategies, but do you feel you're giving something away? Are you losing anything by streaming or giving away content?
Yeah, well, of course we're losing something. Like on Tuesdays, we usually stream, and I don't think we try as much new stuff then as we usually do because we don't want to give it away. So yeah, it's pretty much just the same.
I think that's unfair to say that they lose stuff by streaming because it's not just them that streams. Like everybody streams, and of course, like. It's not just them that are giving away what they do.
Yeah, I agree with you, but you can't argue that by streaming you're like making it easy. You're making it easy for your opponents to figure you out.
Good tweet.
I don't know. Drink.
Okay.
Okay. Zebo doesn't want to be involved. Maybe we should have got Mira in.
No, fuck man.
Wow.
But like, they cover everything and then you go to me. What am I supposed to say?
True. To jump in then, man. Right, I'm going to ask this next topic. It's fairly general, but it's before we get into the actual stuff about the game. It's about the competitions. Recently, we've had ESA Gamer step up to the plate and start offering cups and stuff. Wow, stop tweeting me. I have to silence my phone. Also got like there's rumors of IGL coming in with something as well. There's there's new competitions. How do you feel about ESA Gamer? Let's just talk about that.
Well, the idea is good, but like £100 split between 18s or whatever it is. Like we won last time and we won like 15. So we have to win 3 times to go plus. Like they have to either get a big prize pool or don't do them as often and add a prize pool, because it's not really worth playing when you buy premium, then you lose money for playing.
Like for a time there was for a long time there was a setup for this with Sony and Kenfo, and obviously they're in my circle jerk, and I know what's going down behind closed curtains, right? Where they were trying to figure out what they're gonna do and how they're gonna create ESA Gamer. And I feel now like I've agreed to Zebo in this case. The times now that we actually bought premium and that we supported this, we really just did it for the sake of having something that is going for TF2.
Yeah.
Like we were like, if we don't support it, we are the same idiots 2 years ago didn't support Unlocks, right? But now it's getting kind of to the point where like if you have the 13 weeks in a row, it gets kind of pointless. Like we get to the point where like Epsi takes like 70 headsets and they put it on eBay and stuff like that. So they won't get shit from that, and they will get like pennies for playing ESA Gamer as well. And I see the struggle that ESA Gamer has, because obviously with like having really dominant 3 teams, they will never get like surprising outcome of the tournament, if you know what I mean. Like every week is.
Well, are you saying that supporting TF2 is a losing proposition because the scene is just so like inbred? There's no way to get any real competition.
There is just competition between us 3. Like that's the thing. Like, and not even like it's more about
the problem is,
but
it's more about
look at the bigger picture. By having these competitions, we're maybe encouraging people that there is, like you're saying, it's not profitable, but at least having some sort of regular cash money competition, does that encourage the lower tier of players, or are they still thinking, oh, we can't beat these top 3?
You just lose money by playing.
There's problems between the teams and the competition. One is the top teams. The problem there is that only one team puts as much effort in as necessary, and the second is that the low teams don't put in enough effort. So there's always going to be the problem that there's only ever one team that's going to be winning. Like no one else cares as much as that one team.
And like for the top teams, even if you win, you don't win anything.
Like,
you just lose.
Look, when we become,
like we lose money for playing.
We became 3rd, or we became 2nd when we lost against Broder. We make a minus. So it forces us over time to play every single Sunday for a month. And that's not 2 hours of TF2.
And
that's
if you do that and you win every time.
That's 6 hours of TF2. And it's not worth it. I have to say it's not worth it. Like for me it's not worth it. I can do like a Photoshop work or whatever and sell that for more money than I make in ESA. I like the idea. It's an honorable idea to put like a bit of like give and take into the community, but it's not working out if you have this kind of community, because there is no big premiership.
But this
where,
is like
you have like new people just contesting each other. It's getting stale after 5. Like you will see in 2 weeks time when we have the next two events, it's getting stale. People are going to be like, well, no, why would I sign in for another month of premium?
This is the paradox though of TF2. It's like people at the top ask for cash tournaments because that's what drives competition. But then when they get it, it's like, well, this isn't enough money yet.
We don't get it.
We're not even making a profit. Like we're losing money for
we're
playing.
We're not getting a profit out of it. We made a profit in the first tournament where there was a big prize.
Maybe ESA Gamer is a bad example, but in the past, there's been other tournaments
because
it's been a couple of hundred, but when you divide that by 6.
And that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, but like, firstly, where's the incentive for like organizations to sponsor TF2 teams when the tournaments are as little as they are? Like, what's the incentive for Epsilon to continue sponsoring us?
Yeah, but where do you start?
Tournaments are.
Are you supposed to grow up to a big prize pool? You're just expecting some sort of
No,
high roller to roll and slap down 10k.
The players themselves need to be willing to contribute enough. Like, we need to pay out of our own pocket to contribute to these tournaments. Like, I paid, I think, like Epsilon ourselves paid for ourselves to get prize money out of this tournament that we just previously won, because we couldn't pay. Epsilon couldn't pay at the time. Like, there's no incentive for them to pay. Like,
Yeah, but
there's no
that's
incentive for any
like
top team to pay for us.
if you pay more to get a bigger prize pool, you're still not making any profit. Like,
No, but they can't
Yeah,
run
because
them.
not enough, like the way the tournament runs at the moment is that the prize money is based off of what they receive from premium. If the only premium they receive is from one top team and a few other like players and stragglers, there's no reason to run the tournaments if
Well, at least not run them
only
every
8
week.
people running it.
Stack
Yeah.
the prize pool and then run one. They can't do it every week if they have
They
100
do it like
pounds
the
this
reason why
week.
the reason why they do it, and I know that like this is a fact, is that they do it because of the Ozone headsets. The sponsor Ozone wants 6 headsets out there every Sunday, and that's the problem. Like, let's imagine if you do it every 4th weekend, like every month, they would do it for the next year and a month to get the headsets out there. You know what I mean? Like they want to.
I feel like the jump from one week each week to one once a month is too big a jump though. I feel like it should be gradually
2 weeks.
decreasing in the amount of tournaments there is. Like, yeah, exactly. There should be one every 2 weeks. See how what the involvement is for that then, because once every month is still like, I feel like that's too little for a TF2 tournament, even for TF2. Once every 2 weeks is the right amount for a TF2 tournament. Maybe teams can actually contribute the amount necessary for that.
And I think it's stupid to split the top 8 as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's such a small prize
There isn't a
pool.
top 8 in TF2. Yeah, there isn't a top 8 in TF2. Why is there a top 8 split when there's only 3 teams in TF2 worthy? I'm sorry to say that to the other team, but there's only 3 teams in TF2 worthy of a prize pool.
Yeah, like,
yeah, I know this is. I can just imagine people watching this back and saying, "Oh, these goddamn Premiership elitists," but I totally agree with what you're saying. It's just a bizarre situation. That's why I'm trying to see what you guys are thinking about it, or what can even be changed about it. But my point is just that, like, I think it's good. I agree. You're not making a profit, whatever. But like Ip said as well, everybody that signed up, I even registered. I haven't played a single game. They just did it to show support. But
yeah,
like how can we grow from here? Just looking specifically at ESA Gamer, obviously there's part of their strategy, as Ip says, the sponsors got things to get every week, but does the fact that there's tournaments going on every week not also encourage people to compete more, or are people sick of it?
I feel like the biggest problem in TF2 at the moment is that we're too focused as a community on scrimming. I feel like teams are too focused on one tournament per week, with that being ETF2L. Teams are too happy to just sit back and practice and then practice and practice and then play the ETF2L game. Like, teams are happy that for whatever reason, teams are happy that ESL is now gone. I think that letting ESL go is our biggest downfall as a community. Losing that meant so much for the community. Like, we had so much going on with them. We had the possibility of EMS, which has always been a big tournament with the in general for ESL. Yeah, like the TF2 community now has just settled on the fact that we'll take whatever we get.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I feel a lot by reading the posts that are done about ESA Gamer, that we see it some thought as the holy thing for TF2. This will now save us. This is the thing for ETF2L. This is the thing for Europe. If we don't have ESA, right, then at least we have ESA and we have something to play for. And it's kind of like, well, you have to support it because it's the only thing that is there, and I think that's the wrong incentive to play for it now. Because, like, really, I said it in just really, I think like 15 hours ago. I said on the ETF2L forums when they asked for feedback that I felt like, where's the point for any other team than the top 3 to actually buy premium? And then not even for the top 3 teams there is a point to buy premium, because only the first 2 get something out of it if they play 4 Sundays a month. So there's absolutely no incentive to play. Obviously it delivers you some sort of like official surrounding, right? You have a little hype around it, you get a cast and stuff like this, but in the end it's nothing. And there is nothing. Like, okay, well, Epsi has the headsets, they have their Razer gear ready, they'll send it to eBay, they will try to sell it, they will not keep it, and it's not, that is not something you can keep people interested in. And like I said before, I'm not against that kind of ideas. I'm not against ESA Gamer. I think it's a noble idea to do, but the concept itself is wrong if you think that people actually are going to commit money, even though they will never see any of it. Like that's what they.
Even if they win, they go
Yeah, and
minus.
that's-
Like
Yeah, and this relates back to the same problem that other teams in Prem don't put the same effort in that the top teams in Prem do. Like, the top teams in Prem put so much effort in that it's not even relatable to the bottom teams. So these top tournaments are only good for these tournaments are only good for the top teams, whereas like the bottom teams don't put in the effort for the payouts to be worth it.
Okay, so we're basically saying that this sort of self-supporting model is a nice idea, but it's not going to work. We need
It's the same-
sponsorship.
look,
I
James,
mean,
it's the same stuff we had in CC, right? Like we can relate to this. We said self-sustaining business model. We want to create revenue through the content that we produce. That's exactly what ESA Gamer is doing. They want to create through the content that they produce and the hype and the clicks on the site. They want to attract sponsors, but in the end, like, they only keep the people interested so long. I don't see in like 2 months' time it's still going to be the same thing. Like now, obviously, Numlocked was like, okay, we have to support it. It's the only thing we have at the moment. And Zebbosai was like, okay, Epsi is playing, so we play. And we were like, if they two play, we have to play as well. But it was never about the thing as well, in general. You know what I mean? It was never about the initial idea about this thing. It was more about these two competing and us competing, and then us three having our little tournament against each other. So
yeah, like right now, it's better practice than playing
Exactly,
a
so
PSW.
what I
That's
feel
why we
now-
sign up.
and what I know for a fact is their biggest problem is us three, because we make it stale. Like Epsilon make it stale, Broder make it stale, and Wu-Tang Clan will make it stale. Because the outcome of every single tournament is set already. Like the best games they had so far was when Epsi wasn't entering, or with some random ass mixed team, and then Broder had sick games against us basically, and they were intense. That's what they have. But now I feel like that's really what I feel like. You can say this is wrong and it's completely me talking out of my ass, but I feel like if they just hang in there and they don't give the top three teams actually an incentive to play, they get exactly what they want to achieve in the end, because these top three teams will not participate in these cups anymore, and then the outcome of this whole thing gets mixed around. Like they suddenly start to get more interesting results. Suddenly it's Ferber Pandas against LMS again, and it's like these low prem teams to get the one, you know what I mean? Like, and then it gets more exciting and stuff like that. But we three won't be involved in that, and I think that is what this kind of thing will evolve into in the nearer future. To be fair.
I honestly feel like ETF2L would be better, or TF2 in general for Europe would be better off if Epsilon folded and the players separated
Well, of course.
and went to different teams, and that's honestly upsetting. That's honestly upsetting. But like possibly, I don't mean this to sound like egocentric or whatever, but the best team that European TF2 has ever seen, because we've won more than any other team in Europe.
Did you win more than Dignitas yet?
Like if the best team.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah. If the best team in Europe has ever seen, the best team that Europe has ever seen had to fold to save European TF2. Like that's such a sad thing to have to see or hear.
From our perspective in Broder, that would of course, like, we would fold as well. No point in playing. Who should we beat?
Like, what's the team for you? Like, there's no one for you to beat. And it's the same again. Like if you had to fold, who is it? Because it'd be fucking
Just
the low prem team.
We will
Bad
keep
circle.
on playing, win all the tournaments. No, but I see that's the problem I always had with Epsi. Epsi is a great organization. Slick is a cool guy, and obviously you guys are completely up your own ass because you're winning every single shit for a couple of months now, or a year basically. It's cool. I can understand where this ego is coming from, but I said so fuck yourself. So what I'm saying is, I always felt
He
that
laughed, by the way.
your team.
Drink.
Yeah,
happening?
drink.
Did he laugh?
Drinking.
Yeah, he laughed for once. You gotta
So
laugh more, man.
What do you mean for
Laugh
once?
more.
So what I felt always was like, for me it never really made sense. Like for Slick and for you guys, it makes a lot of sense to form this kind of lineup, right, Zeb? Like you want to win, so you win. So it's cool. Like, you don't even have to care about the other two teams because you win against them with ease. So you have the best players in Europe farmed around you because of the prestige of your organization that build up over time in TF2. But for me, it never really made sense to have this kind of thing running to be like, well, let's say I'm like the tumor of TF2. I take what is there, what is good, and I turn it into. I'm serious now. He can tell me I'm an idiot, whatever. But I felt like it's like a virus. Like, it takes the best players. It wanted Tech at the time that Tech was available, and it got Mike when it was available, and shit like that. It always keeps on the same concept. Like, every single season that someone good is available, and someone out of EPSI has to leave. So I always, like, for me, the biggest problem was always that it was really pretentious of EPSI being like, well, you guys should put more effort and more time into it, and you need to practice more and shit like that, when all they did was taking the best people out of the player pool. Because that's an easy thing to say, Zeb. Like, it's a fairly easy thing to say. But
is that not what Epsilon's always been about? Like, it's not necessarily been about taking the best players from the best pool. It's about putting more time into the game. Like,
that's not true.
At the time of Epsilon always being Infused, it's not. No, at the time of Epsilon always being Infused, it's not always been about the best players. Like, they had people like Extrema who wasn't necessarily concentrated on the game. They had on Pocket Nox who wasn't.
But overall, their lineup was
like,
better.
at the time,
always.
their lineup was still the sickest shit in Europe.
No, overall, they always had a better lineup.
At the time of Epsilon being Infused, Infused lineup was me, Mike, Mike, and Cookie. Like arguably three of the best players at the class. And you're saying that Epsilon has only ever been about the best at the class. I disagree because like.
They had the best main caller though. They still had Nox.
And like, you had people on the other hand, like, you brought a lot of potential to the table. So did Mike, and so did Cookie. But there was a whole different level being in your team. Like, half of your team wasn't even half on your level. You had fucking Dunk, and like, Greg, and who was the rest? Was it Flisco and shit?
What about the season where Epsilon went in and beat them, where they had Mitzi on Pocket? Like, arguably Mitzi, to a lot of you guys, Mitzi would not be the greatest of Pockets ever.
I played a lot of.
No, but I've heard differently. Of course, because I've heard differently from Broder or Zebbosai.
He always played this anchor in the team. He was always 300 HP. If you jumped him, he was full HP. You were weak, he would kill you. We were like, fuck this guy. He just has to hit one rocket because his scouts are so good and his roaming so. Yeah.
So by saying that, you're not necessarily saying that it's the best player. It's the way the team plays.
Mitzi probably said like. He wasn't the best.
It's Nox.
But it's Nox. It's really Nox. Like, he is the best main caller TF2 has ever had.
But you say that, but like, we 5-0'd you without Nox.
Yeah, but you've learned from Nox.
Yeah,
like,
that's
he's
the thing.
The puppet master. He controls
Mike in Infused isn't close to how good Mike is in Epsilon now. He has learned so much from Nox.
You try to.
Exactly, yeah, I admit I've even learned enough from Nox, but I disagree that you say that it's always about taking the best players from the pool available.
Level. It doesn't matter if Nox is on Pocket or Medic.
Exactly, so it's not about the best players from it's not about the best players from the pool. It's about
the best environment.
But you form this environment.
Exactly, the best environment.
Like, that's what you do. You can't tell me that you've seen something under.
No, the environment's already there. The environment's already there. The environment's already there. The environment's already there. It's about bringing players in to learn from that environment.
I feel you have one consistent in this team.
Alright,
you have one consistent thing in this team. It's
30 minutes going here.
It's a good discussion. Like, it is Nox and the Scouts. It doesn't matter if it's Basher Stefan or Stefan and Walters, right? It always has been one of the best scout pairs in Europe. And like the best main caller, Medic, Pocket, whatever he played. And like, you know, I'm not like Nox and me, we love each other, right? Like, on the server, we control each other and whatever. But he's one of the best players I've ever played against. And this is not like coming from like an aim point of view, because Mike is still better on rockets and stuff like that. But just like the stuff that he knows and the stuff like the passion he brings to the game with his French accent and the way he goes, right? Oh, you guys are merde and stuff like that. It's just so good for your team and hypes you up so much. I feel.
Overall, as a TF2 player, Nox is the best that's played.
This is what I feel like. You brought in, obviously, you didn't bring in, let's say, the biggest talents or whatever. You brought them into an environment where they already had super good players around them, so they could grow easily. You know what I mean? With ease,
Oh, yeah,
without
okay.
having to struggle every week to watch STVs. You know what I mean? Like, this is the stuff what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, I agree with you. Like Nox is an amazing caller who's very easy to learn around. Like the first team I ever main called for was Infused, and that was a team that competed against Epsilon. And the fact that I went from main calling with Infused to main calling with Epsilon is mostly attributed to Nox, because I've learned a lot. I've even learned a lot from Nox. Like already at the time I've been playing for 4 years, and already like at the time I'd learned a lot from Nox. I'd learned how to main call and what not to do and what to do. And I do agree with you that Nox is the best main call in the game. So I think it's not
I think
necessarily
Nox is
taking the
just
best players
cheating.
from the game, but it's like Admirable.
He's just cheating like he did in natural selection, right, James?
Oh yeah, Nox and Mitzi hacking on Publix, man. They deny it to the death, but I'll go on record here and
Let's
say
close
those
that.
guys
Let's
hacked.
close this VD for now.
Let me, So, let me just throw out only one little short answers here. The potential of ESEA in Europe. That's something like I've emailed them in the past, and Torbo was like,
ESEA.
they wanted to get CS:GO up and going in Europe first.
ESA?
Well, looking
ESEA.
looking at the lineup, let alone looking at the lineup on its own is not the lineup. Sorry, the prize pool on its
ESEA,
own
bro.
is exciting enough for any European player. Like
Yeah, the price pool is good there.
exactly, like a 16,000 prize pool in America is
Yeah,
exciting enough
so
for any
much.
European player.
But could
Like,
we
I'm
get
sure-
them the subscriptions?
I'm sure Europe. Sorry?
Could we, like, this is a business perspective, obviously ESEA would come to Europe maybe if we could guarantee them that we could get them subscriptions. Will people in Europe sign up, or does nobody want to spend money?
I know that Epsilon would have the support of the organization.
Well, the top teams would, but I doubt the lower teams would. Like, sadly, I don't think
Yeah,
they
No,
exactly.
listen.
Like, what's the incentive for the other teams?
Top 4 go to LAN though, man. People would pay to go for that.
I want to give an example of the lower teams. For example, Madmen. They're a mid-table, low-table team that against HRG in the map on Gullywash came very close to beating them. Like it was 5-3. In the first half, they completely dominated. It was 3-1, I think. Whereas in Europe, there's no incentive similar to that. Like
it changes.
It's not
this
as
is
close.
also why Europe just is so far behind in terms of TF2. Like we can call it.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot down to the config, because, well, not the config necessarily. Sorry, the rule set, because like the break in between halves, it offers a lot to the lower teams, where it gives them a chance to talk about what's happening.
I don't agree. I think the incentive is missing. No? The incentive of actually contributing, like investing money for a long period of time. Let's say, I don't know how long ESEA season is. Let's say 2 months roughly, right? I don't know if it's true. Let's just imagine it's 2 months, and be like, okay, I'm an invite team, and I per player invested $50, right, or something like this. These people care then because they invested money, right? While we have this stigma of, okay, Premiership, that's it, I fold, I form the next team next year, every season, right? As long as I keep my mid-prem, low-prem level. And this is the stuff that kills us in the end, that people, like we were talking about earlier, about people not caring enough, and people would care if it actually goes into their fucking wallet, right? If they would be like, oh fuck, my $50 are gone, and I didn't win anything because I underperformed in invite, open, intermediate, they would be like, yeah, that's shit, next time I have to care. And suddenly you form this kind of mindset, this is the biggest difference between an A and EU. This competitive mindset that they know there's something on the line for them. They can win money. There is a competition. There's incentive, a token to play for. Well, we play for nothing, basically. Like, obviously, there is a prize pool. We can be lucky that there is even a prize pool. But the prize pool is so small that for the top 3 teams, it makes sense to care. But as soon as you know, okay, you're not going to win against Zebbosai, you're not going to win against Broder or Epsilon, you just don't give a shit. Right, like that's
also like I don't know if this is true, but in the bad players in NA, they're fanboys of the like top players a lot more than in Europe.
Yeah, because they create, because of this incentive, because they have this kind of competition going on for actually playing for something and for playing for a certain amount, like for fairly big amount of money compared to Europe, people are going to be like, "Yo, this is sick! Like HLG is actually competing for a lot of money, and they're going to Europe, so they have this kind of idols, the star figures that people can see up to."
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
if Europe, you'd be like, like, well, Broder wins $300, like Epsi wins 600.
Well-
What's this shit? I don't give a shit about that, and I feel this is a big problem. Like, obviously, it's not hard to fix, and it's just me pointing out problems. I'm not delivering any solution.
I also, like in Europe, the top players are just part of the community as well. Like I feel in America, the top players are like they're above the community, if you know what I mean. But here we're just a part of the community.
Yeah.
They-
No, I
They
agree
work
with
to
you.
earn
Like,
that status though. They've streamed and they do.
yeah, but no.
Lots of
I
mentor
disagree
sessions
with
and
you.
stuff.
Like, they don't stream, and the only reason they've done the mentor sessions
Yeah,
is because they've been
fundraising.
donated to get them to ESEA lands or to iSeries. Like, they've done nothing differently than the Europeans have. But
In the past,
the
though.
Americans, because the American community is so much more. I feel like it's more connected and it's a lot easier to understand each other because there's no different languages. They only speak one language.
Fucking
Whereas over in
trenches.
Europe, there's like in the top team there's fucking
Hello?
there's French, there's German, there's
You mean
there's
that's
Welsh.
English?
Like no.
Okay, well let
And
me
English, yeah.
let me draw a parallel here. Like you know, I'm not an ESEA historian, but whenever they first started out, I'm sure their first season there was like no LAN, very little prize money, and slowly it's built up over time. I think maybe this season there's like $10,000 prize pool or something crazy like
16,000.
that. Yeah, and like my point to you originally when we were talking about ESA gamer was that sure we're not getting anything out of it now, but if we, and Ips touched on it as well, but if we continue to support them in the longer term, medium term, long term, maybe
But
something will grow out
Still,
of it.
like, did they pay $50 for ESA to lose money? I doubt that. I think they still gained a little bit. Like the top teams now, we just played to support the community.
But they have to go to LAN as well. Like that money, if you finish fourth, third, whatever,
It's
you're
a
probably
different,
barely
you can't,
covering your
like,
LAN expenses.
I think the fault here, the mistake is to compare both to each other. I feel that ESAA, with the variety of games they're covering, this variety of games is carrying TF2, right? Like somewhere in the shadow is TF2 with the 16k prize pool, while they have huge ass tournaments for CS:GO and whatever teams they play against. So if you build like ESEA, if you build around attracting big League of Legends game teams, Dota teams, or whatever it is, and TF2 teams, and you actually don't have a prize pool, you will stagnate and you will not make it happen from the beginning. You know, like you're trying to say, like your point is that if you keep on supporting it, eventually it will grow big, right? Like it will get better. Yeah,
But you think
and I
we're
think that is
piggybacking
what
on these other big games?
That's what TF2 is doing, and that's what like ESA is doing. I don't think actually like TF2 is creating enough revenue with the streams and such to create such a prize pool, but with the subscriptions they get and with the overall amount of what ESEA is altogether, with a huge ass fucking subscription base, they can afford such a prize pool, which you can't do in Europe with starting small and then trying to attract bigger teams over time by more subscriptions, which you don't get because you don't have a prize pool. You know, like that's
The thing you've got to remember about Europe and America compared is that the European scene the American scene rather is a lot closer than it is in Europe. Like the American scene, although HRD are ahead, the second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. places are up for grabs still. Like there's no clear second and third place. Whereas in Europe, it's only second and third that are of place. Like the rest of the scene isn't.
It hasn't always been like that though.
Second and third are leaps and bounds. No, it has. It has. Like there's always been a top 3 or 4, or push 5, that have been ahead of the rest of the scene in Europe. There's never been team that there's never been.
there's always
that
been
close
one
to the top
really good team.
in Europe.
Like
The
I started to.
Yeah, but there's always been teams that can beat them, and now no one can.
You have to tell me if I'm wrong because I didn't actually play at that time, but I started to play TF2 because of like vlogs I saw from Tignitas playing at iSeries, right? That's the way I got into TF2. And I felt like at that time nobody was really able to beat them, for example. And there's always been this one team in Europe just because of the sheer like that this player pool is so small because no one has an incentive to actually try this. Always this one top team, right? And the rest just has to deal with the people that are left over. It sounds harsh and it sounds wrong, but this is essentially what it is. Like, yeah, it's weird.
Maybe.
No, yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's always been the same. There's only ever been like even like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, it's been Power, Dignitas, TCM, and the other teams. Like, I struggle to remember them. Who were the other teams?
Button
at the
Basher, I
top
guess, was there.
competing back then?
There's almost like a, I don't know if I'm putting too much into this, but there's almost like a little cycle where there is like one really big team that's dominating everybody, and that actually gets people interested. Like, you've seen Crack Clan and Broder come out of the woodwork here. Sure, they're not beating Epsilon yet in the officials, but you would agree that there's some sort of competition going on here. And then these teams like put a lot of effort in, and get to a point where they're like, yeah. Then they step back and look at the tier 2 scene, and they're like, why are we doing this? And then a lot of players fade into the distance, and it just goes on like that.
For a long
no
time.
payday.
I was like, okay, with me being like, when I played with the old roster, with me being the only one actually committing time to this and just really having a slow progress, even when you were in the team and you helped me a lot by just keeping the game or the team calm and stuff like that. Like, we will not get that far, right? We will only be able to maybe contest second. If we're lucky, we will be these really fucking hell, Numlocked, this really talented Broder team, which they are still and have been at that time. But for me, it was always like, why do we care? What is this all about? Like, what is TF2 all about? Why do we even get to compete against these two teams that we have to compete against if the rest, quote unquote, don't really care? Because that's what they said in the interview. It's not like I'm making up stuff. That's what they said. They don't care, and they want to compete, and then from playing against low teams, they want to learn something to eventually play against the top teams. So why would we care? And I think the only thing why we really care is because we have these, like, for my example, I have these 12 almost similar minded people. I have 6 in Broder, and I have the other 6 in Epsilon that I really like to compete against. Like, that's the only thing we have. We have just a 3 at the moment. Obviously, Epsi is dominating us, and they're like, well, we don't really give a shit. Like, we, from time to time, we just turn it on in officials and we beat each other. But I think for Broder and us, it's just really about this one goal to achieve. It's not about any prize pool. It's not about... Yeah,
it's
exactly.
about beating
At the moment,
Epsilon.
it's like
That's
about
always.
beating Epsi, and that's the only incentive for us to compete. And
yeah, that's true.
But that's kind of what the scene's only ever been about. Like, back 3 or 4 years ago, the scene was about being 4 kings with Dignitas back then.
Well, we're getting into sort of deep and meaningful questions here about what it is to compete, but let's move away from this. We've gone past the 40-minute mark here. I'm not setting a time limit on this discussion at all, but there's a couple of topics here that are all related to how the game plays, and I'm just going to rattle through them fairly quickly. Got a fairly open one coming up at the end then, but maps, looking at this season's maps, anything you want to cut out there, anything you want to bring in? Were you happy with King of the Hill? Is that something you'd like to play again? Blah, blah, blah. Jump in.
I think Violate's been very good in the fact that it's helped. I think it might have helped the lower teams in the fact that it's not necessarily tactically based or team based, or team based. It's more the fact that, you know, over time you've quickly learned how to adapt as a team, how to work as a team, that you can beat the other teams that are more focused on DM than focusing on how to beat the top teams.
Yeah, like I think the map is good as it is now. Perhaps add gravel pit, but I don't want to remove anything.
I don't like gravel at all. I don't agree with Violate, not Violate gravel at all. I think it's too...
Epsilon would say that.
It's a good map, but it's very random in the fact that if you lose one map, if you lose as a defender, it's over. There's no
well,
comeback.
listen, like, what I feel like is that a viaduct is some sort of the test bed and the map that people in Europe really can experience what it takes and how, like, what it takes to repush, what it takes to take a point, how it is to have a good transition plays, to have a sniper going, to have like crits and whatever. I feel it's really just it's a 5 CP map boiled down to 1 CP basically.
It's like the ultimate
But I don't think
PCB.
promoting
Did
that
you
sort of
just
stuff
say
is
That's what it
PCB
is.
when you meant BCW?
Yeah,
Oh,
PCW.
scream.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate PCW map, really.
I don't think promoting that.
There's like no dead
I
time.
don't think promoting the
Why
slow,
slow?
the
It says
slow
slow.
gameplay is a good idea. Like promoting heavies and snipers is just going to
That's
slow
just
the game more.
Numlocked.
Well, that's what heavies and sniper is. How is heavy and snipers?
Were we just
fast
talking about
gameplay?
heavies and snipers?
It's about winning. Why are we
What are we?
talking?
We're talking about maps here.
You just were winning. Am I?
We'll come to that. We'll come
Oh
to
my
that.
fucking god! My
Every
phone.
time someone gets a text, we should
Right, I'm
drink
gonna
anymore,
just,
'cause we never
uh,
drink anymore.
I need to go to the toilet.
It's true.
I've been drinking. This
We're all
time.
sobering up. Numlocked needs to
we
sober up.
round it
Get
up?
like a man a pint of water.
I need
Right.
to drink.
Yeah, I
water.
mean, like for this video.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
enjoying this.
Right, I'm gonna just sure. Well, we
Why
could,
you pee?
but nah, we'll keep going,
Go.
man. There's only 15 minutes left here. I hope.
Yeah, you go pee.
Thinking... Oh
Can
wow.
we take a quick break? Please, I really need to go.
All right, I'm gonna stop this. We can stitch it together.